In May 2022, the entertainment world was completely taken by surprise when Ray Liotta, the memorable star of Goodfellas, died suddenly at 67 while working abroad. The news seemed unreal because he had been energetic, actively filming, and full of forward motion. Yet behind the shock and the many tributes, a troubling question remained. What truly happened? For close to a year, no definite explanation surfaced, only rumors and quiet. Then the official autopsy findings came out, offering details that entirely shifted the discussion. What medical examiners eventually discovered presented a much more intricate reality than anyone had foreseen. The adoption that drove so much of his inner world was at the heart of Liotta's life. Born in New Jersey in 1954, he felt a sense of displacement right from the start. He was relinquished soon after birth and lived in an orphanage for half a year before Alfred and Mary Liotta, a caring working-class couple of Italian and Scottish background, adopted him and raised him as their own child. Ray always knew he was adopted. As a boy, he even spoke about it freely, once making it the topic of a school show and tell. But knowing did not make things easier. Underneath, there was resentment and bewilderment, especially toward the birth parents he never met. That emotional sharpness would later become part of what made him so fascinating on screen. His younger sister, Linda, was also adopted, which helped make the situation feel normal at home, even if the unanswered questions never disappeared. The Liotta household in Union, New Jersey, was Roman Catholic, though not deeply devout. Ray participated in the rituals, communion, confirmation, the essentials. But faith was more like background noise than everyday practice. Still, it stayed with him. Later in life, he confessed that whenever he felt uncertain or burdened, those familiar childhood prayers were what he instinctively turned back to. After finishing Union High School in 1973, where he would later be inducted into the school's Hall of Fame, Ray lacked a clear direction. College was not a strong desire, and academics never seemed like his path. He nearly ruined the whole thing by walking out of his SATs, convinced he would ultimately wind up in construction or another hands-on trade. His father offered simple guidance: attend college and choose whatever feels right. That loose advice took him to the University of Miami. Even then, acting was not a lifelong ambition. In fact, his entrance into drama was nearly accidental. While queued up for registration and feeling instant aversion to subjects like math and history, he spotted a friend waiting in the drama department line. On a whim, he joined her. What started as light, almost silly children's theater soon grew into something far more serious. It connected with him. He had discovered a place where emotion, gut feeling, and presence mattered more than textbooks. He earned a Bachelor of Fine Arts in 1978, though not before spending his early years singing and dancing in musicals, a far cry from the fierce screen persona audiences would later associate with him. After college, Ray went straight to New York City. Like most young actors, he needed reliable income, so he worked as a bartender for the Schubert organization while pursuing auditions. Progress came quickly. Within 6 months, he had an agent. Soon after, he secured the role that put him in the spotlight: Joey Perini on the soap opera Another World. From 1978 to 1981, Ray became a fan favorite, known not as a tough guy, but as the sweet, reliable heartthrob. Joey was sincere, faithful, and forever falling in love, often with disastrous results. Years later, while appearing on The Bonnie Hunt Show, Ray watched clips from those early days and responded with authentic astonishment. Seeing himself play the clean-cut hero felt almost dreamlike. Joey Perini was the total opposite of the dangerous, unpredictable characters that would come to define his film career. On the soap, he was soft-spoken, courteous, and devoted to his mother. But being a soap character meant life was never straightforward. Joey's story dived into full melodrama: a sincere proposal followed by sudden tragedy, a hospital stay that led to falling for a nurse who turned out to be extremely wealthy, and a marriage wrecked by secrets and misunderstandings. It was exaggerated emotional storytelling, and Ray embraced every moment, right up to the near slip. After several steady but confining years on Another World, Ray Liotta hit a breaking point in 1981. He made the classic risky move and went west to Los Angeles, seeking something greater: a genuine opportunity in movies. Hollywood, of course, was not designed for easy access. The industry often favors recognizable names and internal connections, and while talent remains important, entry usually depends on who you know. Ray arrived without advantages. The early years were sparse. He took whatever small roles he could find, including a quick appearance in a short-lived Casablanca TV adaptation and a guest spot on St. Elsewhere. To keep improving, he signed up for acting classes with Harry Mastro, a respected coach whose former students included future stars like Bryan Cranston and Jim Hinu. What made those classes even more striking was who sat next to him. Ray trained alongside Kevin Costner, Stephen Bauer, and Bauer's then-wife, Melanie Griffith. At the time, they were all simply working actors trying to gain attention. By 1986, Griffith got her big break when she landed a lead role in a new Jonathan Demme film called Something Wild. Ray, now 30, felt trapped. His career was not failing, but it was not advancing either. Asking for help did not come easily to him, and he needed considerable encouragement before he even thought of calling Griffith. He wanted success on his own merits, not through favors. Still, his parents, both politically aware, reminded him of a tough truth. Moving forward sometimes means making a phone call. News of the role had already circulated in his acting class, but his agent could not arrange an audition. Griffith, already cast, had pulled and made it clear to director Jonathan Demme that Ray was someone worth meeting. That recommendation opened the door. Ray entered the audition nervous, but ready. He set aside his anxiety, concentrated on the work, and performed a raw, intense scene opposite Jeff Daniels. When he left, he felt he had given it his all. Then came the waiting. Days went by. Confidence turned into doubt. By midweek, he was already telling himself this was another lost chance, and that time was running out. Then the call arrived. Demme told him the part was his. It was the release of years of frustration, patience, and quiet faith finally being rewarded. Even then, the struggle was not finished. Convincing Warner Brothers was another hurdle entirely. Producer Irwin Winkler was not convinced. From the studio's perspective, Ray simply lacked the star power to anchor a major release. According to longtime Scorsese collaborator Barbara DeFina, executives wanted big names that would guarantee ticket sales. The alternative ideas were very different. Winkler later admitted that names like Tom Cruise were considered for Henry Hill, with Madonna even mentioned for Karen. At one point, the project threatened to stray far from the gritty realism that would eventually define it. Ray refused to fade into the background. In a chance meeting outside a Los Angeles restaurant, he finally confronted Winkler directly and stated his case. It was not arrogance, it was belief. He explained why he understood the character and why he was the right fit. That conversation changed everything. The very next morning, Winkler called Scorsese and admitted he finally understood what the director had been fighting for. Even with Ray attached, the studio was still not entirely convinced. They needed something or someone to feel secure. That reassurance came the moment Robert De Niro signed on. Once De Niro joined, and with Joe Pesci and Scorsese reuniting after Raging Bull, the entire energy around the project shifted. This was no longer just another crime movie. It now carried real weight. With that, the studio felt comfortable taking a chance on a less established leading man. Everything seemed to be aligning perfectly. But just as momentum built, tragedy was near. Production on Goodfellas was already moving at full speed when everything suddenly stopped for Ray Liotta. In the middle of shooting, he received heartbreaking news. His adoptive mother, the woman who had raised him and shaped his life, was dying. Martin Scorsese learned what had happened and went straight to Ray's trailer. Inside, Ray was utterly shattered, overcome with sorrow and disbelief, struggling to understand why someone so kind had to endure such suffering. Scorsese immediately told him to leave and be with his mother, no questions, no pressure. But Ray refused. He was devastated, yet he insisted on staying and completing the day's work. Scorsese checked again to ensure it was not bravado or denial. Ray was sure. They walked out to the set together. That day's scene was meant to be celebratory. The crew celebrating their first big score, laughing, drinking, feeling on top of the world. Before the cameras rolled, Scorsese gathered the cast and crew, including his own father, and quietly told them what Ray was going through. What followed was something none of them would ever forget. The joy on screen was real, but it was driven by something deeper. Everyone understood why Ray was there, and that shared awareness transformed the moment. Grief, loyalty, love, and respect all converged, and that energy flowed directly into the scene. The laughter seemed louder, the smiles broader, almost defiant. Scorsese later said he had never witnessed anything like it before and never would again. That emotional truth was woven into the entire film. Unlike grand crime sagas about powerful mob royalty, Goodfellas stayed much closer to the ground. Henry Hill and his crew were not kings, they were working men, violent, ambitious, and forever chasing a status they would never fully attain. Their world was cramped, tense, and hazardous, and Scorsese wanted it to feel authentic down to the smallest detail. To achieve that, he did not rely only on trained actors. The background of the film was populated with real neighborhood figures. An open casting call was even held at Rouse, a legendary venue, with deep ties to the old Italian-American scene. Casting director Ellen Lewis later admitted it was a gamble. Some people were perfect on camera, others were almost too authentic, with personal histories that made featuring them a risk. One person who absolutely could not appear was the real Henry Hill himself. By the time filming began, Henry and his wife were already deep in witness protection after cooperating with authorities in the early 1980s. Ray never met Henry while preparing for the role. Instead, he studied hours of recorded interviews provided by author Nicholas Pileggi, absorbing Henry's voice, rhythm, and worldview. Only after the film was finished did Henry finally reach out. When they met, his reaction surprised Ray. Henry was not worried about accuracy or reputation. He was simply thankful he had not been shown as pure garbage. Ray, caught off guard, pointed out that the movie did not exactly depict Henry as a saint. In May 2022, the acting world came to an abrupt halt. Ray Liotta, a performer who could fill a screen with menace, charm, or quiet vulnerability, died at 67. For many film lovers, his name was forever linked to Goodfellas, the landmark movie that solidified his place in Hollywood history under Martin Scorsese's direction. The news broke softly but struck hard. Liotta passed away peacefully in his sleep while in the Dominican Republic, where he was working on the thriller Dangerous Waters. He was not on set at the time. Instead, he died between filming calls, a detail that only deepened the shock. He was still actively working, still advancing, still very much in the game. Those closest to the production were devastated. Word spread quickly through Hollywood, and the response was immediate. Tributes came from every corner of the industry, but one voice stood out above the rest. Scorsese, the man who had trusted Liotta to carry one of the most demanding roles of his career, spoke with deep emotion. He reflected on Liotta's rare bravery as an actor and the sheer weight of playing Henry Hill, a character with endless layers during an exhausting shoot where Liotta was front and center almost the entire time. For Scorsese, it was a collaboration he would always be proud of, ended far too soon. In the days that followed, there were more questions than answers. No official cause of death was released, and that silence hung heavily. What made it even harder to accept was how strong Liotta had seemed just before his passing. Photos had surfaced of him staying fit, and his schedule was packed. Alongside Dangerous Waters, he had multiple projects lined up and had recently spoken about how busy he felt even after decades in the business. He believed there was still more ahead of him. Online, fans turned his social media into a memorial. His final post, promoting his role in Cocaine Bear, became a place for people to share stories, thanks, and grief. Many spoke about discovering his work through Goodfellas, watching it with family, and being completely drawn in by his voice and presence. Fellow actors echoed that feeling. Some kept their words short, calling him brilliant. Others spoke about the complexity and humanity he brought to every role, noting how gentle he was away from the camera. What became clear was that this was not just the loss of a colleague. It was the loss of someone who had made a lasting impression. Nearly a year later, the unresolved questions finally eased. The official autopsy revealed that Liotta died from pulmonary edema and heart failure, with underlying atherosclerosis contributing to his condition. In plain terms, fluid had built up in his lungs, and his arteries had stiffened over time, making it harder for his heart to function. Authorities confirmed the death was natural and nonviolent, a tragic combination of health issues rather than anything suspicious. Even in death, Liotta continued to be honored. He was posthumously given a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a fitting tribute to a man whose work influenced generations of film fans. His daughter, Carson Liotta, accepted the honor on his behalf, turning the ceremony into a moment of remembrance rather than celebration. Industry figures spoke about his range, his fearlessness, and how his characters would live on long after the credits rolled. Ray Liotta may be gone, but his legacy is firmly engraved in film history. Through unforgettable performances, bold choices, and a career that never stopped moving forward, he left behind far more than roles. He left behind moments that audiences will return to again and again.